Well, good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. Dr. Laurie Davis here, hosting the Today Show. And Thursday is our very, very special communities, such as our veterans, our Indigenous community, our whatever beautiful community you belong to. So today I'm really honored. I have some female veterans, and today we're going to talk about different things that can happen to women in a male dominated environment. And I can so relate to that. When I started my career as a professional speaker, it was a male dominated industry. And I challenge everybody, name a male professional speaker that has inspired you. And right away, people can think of lots of different people. But if I say, so who's the most famous female motivational speaker who has inspired you? People struggle to come up with a name. So when I was traveling and on the stage, my counterparts were mostly men. So I can connect to what can happen in a different environment, but in a different industry. But that's what we're going to talk about today. Women in the military. It is my understanding that 6% of the population in our Canadian military are women. Only 6%. That's not very many. So that's what we're going to discuss today when the girls all get here. I just also want to share that next week I'll be traveling and I will not have internet access at all. I'm traveling 1,000 kilometers from my home to go way up north, not to Alaska, but might as well be. And I'll be out of commission for a week. So I'm just going up there to service some clients. We're going to do a retreat, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. But you'll all survive without me. I know, I know. Oh, some people say no, they won't, but they will. You got along with, what's that old song? Got along without you before I met you, gonna get along without you now. All right. And just a little bit about the show. Remember, Monday is self empowerment, self care. Tuesday, finance, an amazing co host, Dr. Ramin Modiri, and we talk about money. Wednesday, wellness. And oh, didn't we have a fabulous guest yesterday, Nancy Wright from Northern San Diego, California? And she talked about all the ways that we can be damaging our body. She's kind of like a food specialist and shared some things about grocery shopping and what sugar does to us and all that. It was terrific. And then Thursday, our very special communities, veterans, the Indigenous community, the disabled community, any community that you're in, we consider a special community. And then on Fridays, we do fun stuff. So tomorrow, I'm really excited. My guest is Georgina Lightning. And Georgina has been in the film industry for 32 years, living part-time in LA and part-time in Edmonton. And she was connected to Texas Walker Ranger or Texas Ranger Walker, whatever, however that goes, and other famous shows that we would recognize. So I can't wait to meet her and to talk to her. So we're going to take a little 30-second break because pretty soon these spots will be filled to the gunnels with advertising sponsors. So if you have a book, if you have a product, if you have a business, if you have an event going on or a cause and you'd like us to share it on the show, remember, we're on the air 5 days a week. Our listenership now or viewership is about 20,000 people per episode because of all the platforms we use, particularly Your Home TV, which was a huge connection for us. And that took us into America big time. So without any further talking, let's just show you where you could, because we always throw ads up 2, 3, 4 times throughout the show. So this could be you. So just imagine taking your business and putting it here. And for the first 4 months, we're just offering like a heck of a deal. And everyone in business could afford it. So here we go. my gosh, look who popped in. Have I seen these beautiful faces before? Yes, I have. But oh boy, today we're going to really rock and roll it. Welcome to the show, Jill Younghusband and Natalie Forcier. Is that
Thank
how you
you.
say your last name, Natalie?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Say oui en français.
Oui.
Alrighty. Good morning, ladies. How's the weather in Edmonton and Fort Saskatchewan this morning? We have a beautiful day here.
It is gorgeous here.
Nice and sunny. We just need some more warmth, but the sun is out, so it's all good.
Yeah.
That's right. Excellent. So, ladies, I would like you to start off just sharing with our guests because today we're featuring veterans, and both Jill and Natalie served and served and served and served and served. And so let's just share with our viewers just a little bit about your career, how long you were in the military, what your job descriptions were, what you've done as a person in the Canadian military. So, Natalie, let's start with you.
Oh, thanks, Laurie. Thanks for having me back on. So my name's Natalie Forcier, originally from Northern Saskatchewan. I joined the military at 18 years old in 2002 and served for 14 years. I served out of Winnipeg and Trenton, Ontario, and deployed to Afghanistan in 2008 and 2010, and then had the opportunity, deployed to Libya in 2011, and was medically released in 2016, where I retrained as a massage therapist and subsequently bought a medical clinic that has a veteran-specific program to help veterans navigate healthcare and community resources.
Wow. And what did you do in the military?
I was a medic. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Boy, that's a long way from home, right? Afghanistan.
Yes, it is.
Wow. Over to you, Jill. A little history of your career.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, I'm Jill Younghusband. I joined the military at 17. I was still in high school. I started off in the reserves as a trucker with 28 Ottawa Service Battalion. So I was running around in the old deuce and a halves as a teenager in Petawawa. And then I transferred over into administration and worked in career management, transferred into the regular force. Worked in career management in Ottawa, did a stint with the United Nations with one service battalion out of Calgary to Namibia in 1989, where we were supporting the free and fair elections in Namibia at that time. And then from Ottawa, I went to Geilenkirchen, Germany, where I worked with the NATO AWACS, the Flying Air Traffic Control Station. I was there in the mid-90s where we were monitoring the no-fly zone over Bosnia as our primary focus at that time. So working with an international crew. And then from Europe, I got posted here to Edmonton with the 1st Battalion, Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry as an administrator. And I worked there for up until 2000 when I was also medically released from the military. From there, I retrained as a musician, as a singer. I took the Grant McEwen music program, the 2-year vocal program here in Edmonton. And from there, I worked at the University of Alberta in music. I also have a background in health and wellness because of my own experience with my health challenges. I've dabbled in a few different modalities, but became a certified health and wellness coach when I found so many benefits of lifestyle changes as I was over the years.
Right.
Now I'm fully retired, but I got a side gig as a volunteer working with health and wellness and advocacy for veterans.
Awesome.
Yes.
Wow, ladies. Whew. Makes me feel like I haven't really done all that much. I'm thinking, whoa, what? All right. Well, we've all heard rumors and stories and read in the paper and online and the challenges that women face when they're in a male-dominated environment. So particularly in serve like the military, the police forces, the firefighters. But when you're a woman and all of a sudden you're in that environment, there are things that can happen. So just based on your experience, what are some things that either have happened, are happening, one that just to rather educate our women out there that you know, we need to be aware of these things. So let's just raise the level of awareness today for women who A, would like to join the military, or B, what can happen after you get in there. So I know you have lots of information around that. So why don't we start? We can go back and forth. Maybe Natalie, you could share a few things, and then Jill could share a few things, and I'm just going to listen because I haven't been there, so I have no credibility today. And all right, over to you, Natalie.
Yeah, I would say one of the biggest challenges that I experienced just as a woman was like you're in a male dominant environment. So a female would typically have to like step up her alphaness just to meet the same level as the men. So that was typically one of the biggest challenges that I found was you had to prove yourself on a greater level than a lot of the men. And so and then once I got out of the military, most of the civilian type work or environments don't expect that from a woman. So it becomes a challenge in itself that you have to kind of like more feminize and reduce your alpha or your leadership type behavior because it's a lot more frowned upon when you get out of the military. So that was probably one of the biggest challenges I faced.
So it would be like over the top on in the civilian world, right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Jill, have you got an example of something that can happen as a woman in that male? And by the way, we qualified it in our description of the show, but it's not our intention today to speak poorly of our colleagues or counterparts, because, and so I want everybody to understand that this is about education and awareness, and it's not for anyone to take it personally. I just want to qualify that. So over to you, Jill. What can happen?
Well, looking back on my experience, you can be, well, I felt like I was under a microscope or a spotlight because, you're there are very few women. And so there's always this sense of expectation. Mind you, that's with everyone in the military as well, but somehow more so for women because you're held to a different standard. And
Mhm.
you gotta meet universality of service.
Mhm.
And so both men and women. But yeah, depending on the unit that you're working with. When I showed up at the infantry battalion where I worked, it was a different vibe than working with the Air Force in Germany with an international crew. So I show up, one of the first women in a Reg Force first line field unit, and the reception wasn't the greatest because it's a culture,
Mhm.
especially with the combat arms. But yeah, you're kind of under a spotlight and a little bit more. You can be singled out
Mhm.
for maybe sometimes for the better, but sometimes they'll make an example.
Okay.
But they
And
go for the vulnerability, going for the
right.
vulnerability,
Yeah.
and testing your skills and your tenacity.
Mhm. Well, I understand that as a businesswoman because I've been a businesswoman 60 years. I had my first business when I was 12.
Mm-hmm.
So, in that business world, I mean, in my generation, when you were looking to be a professional, you either became a teacher, a nurse, a secretary, and with any luck at all, a hairstylist. And that was like our limited. And if you wanted to do something different or be something different, that was frowned upon because the expectation was you'd get married, you'd have some children, you'd be a stay at home mom.
Mm-hmm.
And you couldn't have both. You had to either have one or the other. It was like a trade off.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wow. And so I've had to work way harder. If I'd been a man, my business right now, 32 years later, would be through the roof because I could do deals on the golf course and I could go and have a beer at the tavern and watch the hockey game and do some business. But I didn't have those privileges as a woman. So I was a pioneer in many ways that way.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. You had to do things 1,000 times better. All right. Well, something that's coming up for me, I would like us to have some discussion around the sexual side of things, because when you're a woman in a male dominated environment, I mean, there could be two sides to that, but what was your experience, or what do you know can happen to a woman in the military from a sexual perspective? Natalie?
Yeah, so that's I guess a sensitive subject, because I do know there is a bit of, like, when there's only 6% of women in the military and it's male dominant, there's kind of that pack mentality where, like, especially in the combat arms and like your field units and stuff, where like women can be degraded. I've seen that a lot, or they're not respected the same way as a man. They're equal, kind of thing. So it does happen there, and a lot of it is, I guess, more that pack mentality where men just like it's more, they're more comfortable doing it because it's more socially accepted when you've got a bunch of very male dominant people in the ranks. And it's just like when I was overseas, like there was, the men had, naked women posted in their vehicles. And as a woman, it's something that I just had to accept. Otherwise, if you kind of didn't follow along, then they would push you out. So,
Right.
yeah.
That's a very good example. Jill, what do you know can happen to a woman from the sexual perspective?
Well, it's interesting. Depending on where you are and who you're with. I mean, I remember I was a section commander for a basic training program with Service Battalion in Ottawa, and we went to the training area in Petawawa. This is in the 80s. Now, it may not be that way any longer, but I was a master corporal at the time. I was in charge of a section of 12 people with training, etc. And we went down to the training area where there were 5,000 troops for the summer training. And the rule was any women will, if you're a woman here on the camp, you will not walk alone after dark without a male escort because of the threat of assault. And it can happen. I mean, I remember there was one time where I was walking across the training area just because the women's showers were on the other side of the camp, where there's showers for the men here, there, and everywhere, and laundry points and so on. But I had to walk all the way across the camp just to go have a shower. And as I'm walking through, there's cat calling, and then, guys tearing around in vehicles. And it was it was kind of like a roadhouse mentality, because you're dealing with young soldiers. And so you have to know your environment. And you have to be sure that you're in a safe. That you're safe,
right?
And so, but it always depends on the environment. The Army is different from the Air Force, but yet there are situations with that environment as well. Dinner functions, Christmas parties—they're always fun.
Right.
And of course, when there's alcohol involved and things go sideways,
anything can happen.
and so you have to be really very mindful of your environment and who you're with, and know who you're with.
Thank you for that. Now, what are your thoughts, or what do you know about promotions and what happens for women in the framework when they really actually have worked and earned to get a promotion? And then I'm thinking, somebody with less credentials, less experience, they end up getting the job. I mean, that happens in a lot of environments, but I can imagine in the military that's intensified. What do you know about that?
That's totally the situation, I would say. Like, I know some women who, earned their promotion, and then there was those in the background that, would talk negatively about her. Like, she had earned it without, like, earning it on her merit, but earned it because she was sleeping with someone or
Right.
kind of. So, and I personally knew that person who'd been promoted and totally believed that they earned it on their own personal merit. But it's just that kind of competition because like within like the clinic I worked with, everybody that was mass corporal, we were all ranked against each other. And so, and then so you're competing against your peers. So every little thing you do becomes something worthy of being promoted if your chain of command believes so. But there would always be like, these are your family and they're your coworkers, but at the same time, you're constantly in the state of competition because if you want to get promoted, you have to better the next person who is your friend, your coworker, and your fire team buddy. So it creates just this like not animosity, but just a negative energy within the team kind of thing.
Right. And it would almost make you feel like you're sorry you got the promotion in the first place.
Yeah.
Right. Would leave you feeling, yeah.
Or you earned it, but there are people talking behind your back that would feel differently about it, like they deserved it more than you, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Jill, what's been your experience around women getting promoted?
Well,
with ease and grace.
Right. Military is a very, very all I can think of is critique. You're always being critiqued, always looking for flaws, and so you're always on stage when you're in the military, and so for me, I was a corporal for life. I was so busy working, and with my head nose to the grindstone, getting work done in career management, and it was that workload was so heavy, but I didn't have I couldn't put my hand up and say, can we hire a temporary employee so that I can have some support here? But no, I wouldn't ask for help. No, my goodness. And so I had my nose to the grindstone, and when the evaluations came up, I was always a little bit at the bottom of the list, and I just went, okay, carry on. I'll just keep doing my job. But yeah, you see people getting promoted around you and sometimes it is questionable when people get promoted, depending on what they were doing, and who they chummed up with. Wow. That does happen too. It's both.
Wow. Thank you, ladies. Well, this beautiful woman just joined us, Amy. Thank you, Amy. And Natalie, would you like to introduce Amy to our viewers?
Absolutely. Amy is a fellow veteran that is out of Ontario, and me and her tend to do the same thing with helping veterans navigate veterans affairs and the medical system. And she is an impressive woman that I look up to, and I've learned so much in such a short time. I just thought she would be one of the greatest women to have on this platform for this discussion.
Yay. Thank you so much. Good morning, Amy. And where are you coming in from?
I'm coming in from London, Ontario. Thank you, Natalie. I think it's an honor as well to work with her. I think we just overlapped in a lot of different areas. So it's always a pleasure to see women, in a community that support each other and are supportive on the same mission, and that is to make the community as a whole better. So thank you for the invitation.
Oh, you're welcome. We were just having a discussion, and maybe we'll go to you for your input. The first, maybe you just share a little bit with us about your role in the military, how long you were there, and what did you do while you were there?
I joined in 1999 as a reservist in St. John's, Newfoundland with 56 Field Engineer Squadron. I did a component transfer in 2002 as a meteorologist. And then from there, I served in Bagville, Valcartier, Gagetown, Winnipeg, and then North Bay. I did overseas deployment. I set up the airport for NATO in Kabul. So a little bit of a different deployment than most. I wasn't posted with Canadians. So a lot of diverse backgrounds, and being an Anglophone from Newfoundland, posted into a Quebec unit, in Baggville, and then 5 Route, which is, artillery unit. I think I was the first female posted for the meteorology perspective, but then being an Anglophone as well had its complications at times.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes. I'm broadcasting to you from Alberta. That's where I reside now, but I'm from Nova Scotia and I spent most of my years there. So nice to see you and hear you. The girls were talking about, the ladies, not girls, the ladies were talking about I posed a couple of questions. So shall we take a few minutes and get Amy's perspective on this? I think it would be very valuable. So the first question was, what are some things that can happen to a woman in a male-dominated environment such as the military? So can you share a couple of things that can happen in that environment to a woman?
I think because I joined at such a young age, I was 16 when I entered. I didn't have a lot of life experience. So I didn't have, other employers. I was really looking after the people that I worked with, and they were predominantly male. Being an engineer, my home unit, 56 was amazing in that regard. It wasn't really until I left the rock, so to say, and was exposed to what was expected of me, perhaps even by the other women. They really wanted me to lose my femininity, not have a voice in certain regards. And I found that really challenging because me as a person, I've always been known to just say what I think, which doesn't always go over well, male, female, or military. I definitely struggle with that throughout my career of just holding my own and what's right is right and ethically and morally right. So I think I was challenged with who I thought would be my safe person. And sometimes that was women that I would turn to in confidence, and I assumed they would have my back. But at the end of the day, it was really about their career, their position, and how they were going to get ahead. I didn't have that collective support. So I tended to more be with male coworkers. And I think that helped me well, and it got me through my career because I found that they supported me more, and I didn't have to lose my femininity. I recognized that there was a difference in men and women, and I didn't try to be one of the old boys club. I just held true to myself, and the men respected that more of me.
Cool. Well, there's a different perspective as well, which I love. Also, we discussed, the sexual side of things, what can happen to a woman in that environment from a sexual perspective. What would be your thoughts on that?
Always a difficult topic. I had definitely suffered from the MST. I think a lot of people saw the news article that I did come to press when they leaked the private information of the other, I would say, applicants for the MST through EPIC for the lawsuit. So I was the first one that stood forth and said, I'm not sure why I received all the other emails and the names of the applicants. And I went to the press with it. And because it's such a vulnerable community, again, no one really stood with me. Nobody wants to speak of it. And that's male and women. My own personal experience is I was extremely young, didn't really know right from wrong. I didn't have any exposure in any aspect of my own sexuality. So being thrown into that environment was extremely eye-opening of what I should or shouldn't do. I had no awareness, zero. I look at my own children at that age and I'm like, wow, what exactly did you expose yourself to? For the most part, it was a good experience besides, the single incident that occurred. And I was so young that actually led me with such a force and a vengeance of like predator prey didn't really affect me because I actually knew the predators long before I was seen as a prey, and kind of flipped that narrative really, really quick. And I think I just exposed them at all times in a group setting or environments, which has probably held good for me. So I don't, support it for everybody, but I think my personality could do it where I just wasn't intimidated. I took a step back in that moment. Everybody in that moment knew it was wrong, but yet only one individual stood with me and said, are you okay? High-ranking combat diver, engineer. I'm 17 years old. I wasn't even old enough to drink. So how does that work?
Right.
Nobody stood by me. Nobody asked if I was okay. One person came to my side afterward. I still had to continue to work in that environment and do what was expected of me, and who was I going to report it to? They all knew about it. So where was I going to turn? you know,
Right.
so I just had to pick up the pieces and carry on. And I just said, like, I don't know how or why, but that's not going to happen again. And always had a guard up if
Yes.
alcohol was involved.
Right. Thank you so much for that. We're just going to take a little break. And when we come back, I have a question for all of you. So, of course, I do, because that's my job here on the Today Show. Dr. Laurie Davis, if you're just watching and tuning in, of course, Thursday is our Special Communities Day. So we talk to our veterans, our Indigenous community, members of the disability community, and any community that you're in. If you'd like to come in on a Thursday and bring some friends, we'd love to talk to you, because we're always raising the levels of awareness. And that's what we're doing today with our special guests here to talk to us about being a woman in the military and what can happen and does happen. And we're not hiding back on the truth on that one. Also, too, if you want to advertise with us, if you have a book or a business or an event or something that you'd like to have featured on the Today Show, right now we're looking at snowflakes floating up in the air. But this is where we would do it: half time, quarter time, quarter time. So here we go. We'll just take a little break, get our breath, and then bring our ladies back for our next topic. Welcome back, everyone. Oh, there we go, Amy. That looks better.
I
We
know.
couldn't see all of your beautiful face. So, welcome back, everybody. And today we're talking to some women who have retired from the military, moved on with their lives. But I would like to ask a question. What would you consider to be the highlight of your military career? When was that moment when you felt, wow, I'm really glad I'm here doing this at this time for the right reasons? So, what would you consider to be the highlight of your career? Whoever wants to go first.
I'll go.
Okay.
Oh, so many. When I was serving in Germany in the 90s, the 50th anniversary of victory over Europe was being celebrated in the Netherlands. And my bestie Tara and I got into my GMC Safari, and we drove 2 hours to Grosbeek Cemetery in the Netherlands, where there are over 2,000 Canadian soldiers buried. And we drove there, we changed in the van, put our uniforms on, and we went and met some of the World War II veterans who knew some of the fellows who were buried in that cemetery. And I got a group shot with sitting with them on the bleachers with all these wonderful World War II soldiers. And some of these fellas fought their way from Italy all the way through Europe to get to the Netherlands, to fight in the Netherlands to liberate that country, and to meet with these men. And all they wanted to do was they wanted a kiss. Hello, and they just wanted some attention. And they saw two young corporals in Air Force uniforms, and we were like, they treated us like superstars. So that was a really, really proud moment for me.
Beautiful.
They're my heroes.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
just one. That's just one.
I know. There's many, but we only have an hour.
Yeah.
No. Just teasing you. Natalie?
I would say for me, like, there's many, same thing as Jill, but for me, my deployments overseas and the impact that we had as a Canadian contingent, being able to support the country. And like, while I was living out of Kandahar City, we would bring like NGOs, and we'd go to these communities and build schools or build water sources, and seeing those like tiny impacts that were probably, they felt small to us, but were like huge for these communities that didn't have water or ways of creating an income. So just those impacts, and being able to speak to the girls who, like I went into it was like a rehab for troubled youth. And there was two young ladies that I got to meet. One was 11, one was 13. One was in there for 2 years in detention because she was seen with a boy. And another one was at 13. She had been married, but hugely abused. So she left the marriage and found herself in this youth detention, and being able to connect with this different world that makes you realize how lucky we are in Canada, kind of thing. So I would say my deployments had probably were the highlight, although there's, it's not all fun and games, but it was the part where I got to be part of this impact in a small or large way.
Cool. Thank you. What about you, Amy? I'm sure there are many, but would you like to pick one and share it with us?
I think it was probably 2004, perhaps. I think I was nominated and selected as top 5 on base. So I was posted in Gagetown. I was Air Force meteorologist, and that's unheard of. It's an Army base, but my boss and my supportive staff definitely went above and beyond and gave me the recognition that was deserved. So that was a good moment to see, when you rank top 5 on an actual base, that your hard work does pay off. And I think not just as a woman, is that I got to the top just by working hard. There is no other things that you can accumulate that or, break it down to it other than my hard work was recognized. And I had a good team behind me that recognized that, because then it was kind of like, who is she? Why is there an Air Force woman, for one, on an Army base coming in the top 5? Because it's a hard spot to get. So that was a good moment. And I think working for NATO and seeing all the other countries and the level of respect that I had as a woman with my country and my peers was heartwarming, appreciative. I was proud to be a Canadian woman at that point. I wasn't silenced. I was respected. I've had some countries that said I should be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen while you were here. So, that was when I went home, I had a different insight, because I don't think I saw a difference in a man and a woman work-wise. We were just equals. We just went to work and did the same job. So when you're surrounded with how the different in societies, culturally, religion, you break it all down like that, I'm happy to be a Canadian woman for the Canadian Forces.
Absolutely. Thank you for that perspective. Yes, we often take things for granted. Hey. So it's 2024, all right. And of course, we can trace women back into the military, right back to World War II, and Korea, Vietnam, the whole nine, all the wars. But would you agree or disagree that there are still those barriers and boundaries that exist within the frame of the organization as it relates to advancement, sexuality, pay scale? We didn't even talk about that yet. Do men get paid the same as women in the military based on your rank? Shall we talk a little bit about that, the status, and how much longer? I mean, are things better now than they were in 1965 or 1945? What are your thoughts around that?
I worked with some women in NDHQ who joined the military in the 1950s. And at one time, once they got married, they had to release from the military. They couldn't be in serving. And then years later, they rejoined once they changed the rules.
Okay.
So, you would think, oh my goodness. And at one time, and it's interesting. I've often looked back on my own experience. Could I have had a family and served in the military at that capacity and have both? And I couldn't. So having a family was something that didn't happen for me because of the scope of the job and the stresses of that culture. but it was something that I was so familiar with because I was raised in the military. And so for me, I just carried on and joined and did my work. But it was a struggle, and I did not want to be one of the first women in a first line field unit, to be honest, because I worked with the Army when I was younger, and I went, oh, I'm in my 30s now, I think. And then to be placed in that environment, it was very stressful. I didn't want it. And so if you want to be a woman in the military and join a combat arms unit, go for it. If you meet the physical requirements and meet the criteria, the fair criteria for that trade or for that job, I'm all for it. But to be cherry picked because of your sex or or orientation, no, I think it has to be built on credibility. But also, I have a different view now with life experience as to whether or not women should be in combat field units. How that structure is, because it can be distracting and it can affect the troops. I do feel it because human nature takes over, especially in frontline combat arms. And so I think that, we are progressing, but I think it's gone a little bit too far right now. And I think we're going to have to and our military's it's under stress right now in Canada. The recruiting is down, morale is low, and so I think we need to regroup and focus on can this person do the job, and the environment, and how we can make it work without and maintaining the integrity of the military, because it can get mixed up with the different situations. It's hard. I'm sorry. I'm doing my best to put it into perspective. I'm having a challenge with my words today because I'm a little bit stressed about this.
That's okay. No, that's all right. Well, it's very emotional too for you ladies to even be talking like this today, and it triggers things. It may bring up things, but we're here to help the public to become more aware of what's going on and what can happen. And you've all had very intense personal experiences, for sure. And I told Jill earlier, I said, now, Jill, this is not a healing circle. This is a show now. And we can do the healing circles later because we're really good at that.
Yes.
Over to you, Amy. Your thoughts around, have things changed? Have you seen progress? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've definitely seen the progress. I think, my exposure to military sexual trauma versus those in the 80s or 90s, we've made progress. Have we eliminated? No, absolutely not. Let's not talk about the white elephant in the room. It's there, it's present. Was my experience as traumatic as those? We should never do that, compare traumas. But looking back, it's one of those, my career did suffer because I had 3 children. 2 were 18 months apart. When I told my boss I was pregnant again, he looked at me and said, well, what about your career? I lost out on promotion. I stayed as Master Corporal, even though I was ranked number 1 in the Master Corporals for my trade. I didn't get promoted as a sergeant. My boss elected not to do a PER for me because he said he didn't have enough time to evaluate me, even though in the short months that I was back, I did a winter carnival. I did every check in the box that I knew I had to do. My perspective changed once I had a kid, 100%. Initially, it was service before self. I had a kid. I came back. I did the expectations. I think I came back early from mat leave at 11 months in order to get my 6A because I didn't want my career to fall behind, but I couldn't keep up. There was no balance. I couldn't. My family would suffer. And that's what led to my military release. As I said, I will not deploy. Not that I can't deploy. Therefore, I didn't meet the universality of a soldier and was released for that reason. No one asked me if I could. I just said I won't. So a psychiatrist at the OSI said, then you are no longer eligible to participate in the Canadian Armed Forces. So ultimately that led to it. So if you break it down, was I fit? absolutely I was fit for my trade. 100%. You wouldn't have got a better person to do the trade, but I had to pick my family, and I was not going to be overseas sending pictures to my children. Like, that would just break my heart. And kudos to the woman that did it, because I was so young at the time. I didn't understand it. I couldn't relate to it. And you are strong if you were able to do that. 100%, because that isn't something I had the capacity to do. So I think we're getting there. We're making changes, but it really doesn't matter until you feel safe in an environment. What difference does it make? You know, they're talking about, can I wear nail polish? Can I wear a skirt? I didn't care about any of those things. That was never on my mind of I wanted to look like a woman. I just wanted to show up to work. I don't want to stand out. I didn't want any of these extra things that now they're saying that, oh, you're a woman, you can do all these things. I didn't care about that. I cared about being safe. It didn't matter. So it's really misguiding when you say we're making all these changes. We're making changes. That's great. But what are we doing about safety? If I can't work in a safe manner, but I can wear a skirt and have nail polish and look like a woman, I'm not really sure where we're going with that. Like, it seems like a distraction and a propaganda. Like, the pendulum swung so far to the right that for predator prey, does that make it easier now? Like,
yeah,
I can't grasp that. You know, when I heard it at the Women's Summit, I had to really stop and pause and say, I don't know why you're proud that you can wear nail polish. What does that change about how you do your job? It doesn't. I taught to be a great person, not stand out and just do my job. And that's male or woman. So now that we're trying to have identities and break it down, that doesn't make a soldier any better.
No.
It doesn't matter on the front line if I can do any of those things. All I care about is if you're going to keep me safe, if you're going to have my back, and if you can do your job. So where's the emphasis on that, of picking quality people that don't care about the rest of it? Because culturally, religion, like, none of that mattered to me when I served. I don't even know where half of my friends are from. I never asked it. It didn't matter to me. They were my peers, and that's all I cared about, is if I trusted them and if I felt safe. So progress is made, but you know, I guess it's a short-term game for a long-term game. I'm not really sure what the angle of some of this is, you know, the changes that we're making. I'm not at the top, obviously, so I can't speak on why we're emphasizing a lot of is it just a policy or is it just a paper change? That's great, but that's not protecting those entering the military. That's not recruiting. That's not going to change the quality people that you would want to fill the military. It's actually pushing them away. So,
great perspective. Thank you. I love that. Thank you. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Jill. Over to Natalie. Has anything changed since World War II?
Absolutely since World War II, like the comments that Jill and Amy made. But I think that it's also like changing that culture within the military, like regarding the military sexual trauma. I know when the lawsuit had come out, I had a friend who was a reservist, and we were putting together kind of like an information session so that women could come and understand about the lawsuit and the essence of it, and to be comfortable to identify that they had experienced military sexual trauma. And when she brought that to her unit, they kind of all laughed at her and were like, women aren't getting raped all the time. And the lawsuit wasn't like, rape was part of that lawsuit, but it wasn't the whole concept of it. Like, the struggles that women have because of their gender was a part of the lawsuit. So in the military, if you identified a sexual trauma and brought that to your chain of command, a lot of times it was just dealt with within that chain of command and not dealt with properly, because the culture just like allowed it so that it didn't make it up to the higher ups kind of thing. And so there could be sexual trauma that happened and you could bring that forth and it wouldn't go anywhere, but the gentleman who showed up 10 minutes late for work would be charged, or you could get charged for a sunburn, so a self-inflicted injury. But when it came to sexual trauma, a lot of it was swept under the rug, and that's the part where I don't believe it's changed in a safe manner where you can feel safe going to work.
Okay, thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm learning so much today. Wow.
I
So
can add something to that with what
yes,
Natalie just said. You know, a lot of incidents occur, and some women will not report
yes,
because they can be made an example of.
right.
Like if you're deployed overseas and all of a sudden you get back to Canada and your unit says, "You're back early. How come you're back so soon?" Because an incident happened, and instead of fixing it and taking and holding people accountable, they just sent
Remove.
return to unit, RTU.
Okay.
So many women put up with unacceptable behavior to maintain the status quo and to be able to continue to do their job to the best of their ability.
Cool. That's not cool, but thank you. It's cool that you shared that, is what I meant. Thank you. All right. Our last question. We have about 4 minutes, 5 minutes left on the show. This is like the fastest hour of my day. I do this every day, 5 days a week, and it is like the fastest hour of my day. Yikes. So if I was, just imagine I'm 16, I'm 17, I'm 18, and I'm a girl, and I want to join the military. What would be the best piece of advice? Let's say she has been successfully recruited and she's in there. And what would be your words of wisdom, even, not even advice, but words of wisdom to that young woman? And that's how we'll end our show today. Take a minute and think about it.
I think that's a tough one. I think you have to ask if we would recommend any woman to join the forces at that age.
Well,
So also I have to ration with that of would I,
or even that aspect, Amy, even that if somebody said, what I'm thinking about it, what are your thoughts around that? Either or is fine.
I think just stay true to yourself. I think that if you try to change who you are in any capacity and you're focused on other things other than just doing your job, like make sure you can do your job and be true to yourself. If physically you are not as strong as your peers, ask yourself, are you putting yourself in harm's way or them in harm's way? So be honest and truthful to that. Those things you can accommodate too. You go to the gym or, work around that parameter, but be honest with yourself. And if you're struggling in the physical capacity, see if that's the right fit for you and academically as well. Just make sure you can do your job. That's all I ask of anybody. And how many people are unable to do their job and then they compensate it in other areas, that's where they fall short. And that will probably get them ahead in some ways. And other ways it will, turn around and they're ending up being a leader without the skill capacity to do so, which is risky for all troops.
Wow. Thank you. Jill, what would be your words of wisdom?
Well, I would ask the person, what are your intentions? Do you have a career plan? Do you want to go in as a private, or do you want to go through education? Because there's education programs, because I know about that. But do you have a career plan? I didn't. I wish I had. I just wanted a paycheck, and it was a familiar environment, and I loved the camaraderie of the people I worked with. I mean, I had some great experiences, and I got to travel the world. And yet I got posted from Europe to Edmonton, and then I said, okay, what do I want to do when I grow up? And I was in my mid-30s, and I was not well, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I'd already had 17 years of seeing the world, working with real world operations, international crews, et cetera, et cetera. And all of a sudden, bloop, I had no idea what I was going to do. And so have a plan, professional development. Do you want to have a family? If you want to have a family as a woman in the military, you got to plan it. And you need support. You need support as a woman in the military if you want to have kids. And most of the time, it's a service couple, because we end up marrying soldiers. So be prepared to have double deployments, and then you've got kids. So there's so many things to consider. And so, it's a very important, so yeah, have a plan. What are your intentions? Where do you see yourself in 20 years?
Good advice. Natalie, what would you say?
I was just like reminiscing or like looking at how what things I would have told my 17, 18-year-old self. But I didn't have a plan. I didn't really know what I was getting into, but the what it gave me was like strength, resiliency, and it like I grew up in such a small town that the worldliness of what I was experiencing was not something I expected. So I think what Amy had said was about staying true to yourself and believing in yourself, but not allowing people to dictate how to be or there's that trueness of yourself, like your gut, listening to your gut, standing up for yourself. And I think that would probably be my biggest word of advice, but I didn't have a plan. But I grew, I think, exponentially being in the military from learned experience. I had amazing leaders. I had really awful leaders that were great examples of what I didn't want to be. So being fluid in some aspects, but ultimately being true to yourself and in understanding your capabilities and where you need to grow or where it would be detrimental to you or your life.
Wow. Beautiful. Ladies, I'm so grateful for your time. And I know we're all busy. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for that. Right now, we're streaming live on my Facebook page, Laurie Davis. So you can go in there and view the show. We're also streaming live on YouTube. I have 2 channels on YouTube, so we're streaming live there. We're also in collaboration with Your Home TV, which takes our show to the United States. We have many, many platforms. Probably about 20,000 people will see this show. And if I don't tell people that on the front end because then they say, oh, I can't come on. But I really appreciate all of your input and your information. And so we'll be back tomorrow, same time, same station, with the beautiful Georgina Lightning, Indigenous filmmaker for the past 32 years, has done some tremendous work. And we're going to be talking with her tomorrow. So tune in. And the only thing we ask is for you to share the show. And you'll also be receiving a little gift from the Disability Channel, an electronic gift sent out to you. So if you get an email from Kathy Bell, and if you've been on the show before, you probably already received your gift. So some people are so fascinating. I want to have them back and have them back and have them back. That's just all there is. And Jill and I actually, on Monday, she did a great job. On Monday's show, Jill interviewed me for a little switcheroo. And
No pressure.
no pressure. And you were amazing. So yes, thank you for being here, and we'll say goodbye to everyone and end the show. And Natalie, you hang in there for a few minutes after. And Amy, thank you for coming in today on short notice. We really appreciate it. Bye for now, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.